1. Hockey teams. Love them, hate them, or love to hate them. That seems to be the feeling of those in the hotel industry on these athletes. Mostly the latter, too. Currently working night audit and typing this up as the last of the parents in my lobby slink off to bed. It hasn't even been 2 hours yet, but I've already walked every floor, taken dozens of calls, and had to make a dozen more. But my crowning achievement of the night has been getting to see hockey dads pull their kids aside to swear at them in whispers in public. I came into my shift with a full lobby, and both the FDAs telling me to have fun with this bunch. Looked like 2 hockey teams in the house, and their parents congregating in different rooms drinking only the finest of light beers our local gas stations could provide. Both of my coworkers told me we already had several complaints of kids running around, and one of them was already off yelling at them as I was being given the full situation. Not even a half hour after they had gone home, and I was left alone. I had one guest calling about hearing the room above them jumping up and down, who I then call and ask to stop. Of course, it wasn't them, though. They swear. Then, surprisingly, one of the hockey kids called right after, telling me his friends are doing knock-and-runs on his room, and was worried they were going to wake his dad. Then, as I wrapped those calls up and took the names down the kid could tell me about, another guest came by to ask if a manager was here, and I had to tell him it was just me at the moment. He then told me the kids were running around the halls knocking on doors, and I got to tell him I just got the call from another guest and that I'm about to go up to address it. Luckily, this guest had a photo of the culprit and asked if I knew him or his parents, and sadly I didn't, because I didn't check any of them in. But luckily for both of us, our little rascal was just around the corner talking to his parents, along with several other teammates and parents. Perfect. I got to saunter on over to their little gathering and ask how they were all doing, leaning in on the table right behind our little culprit. "Are we all doing all right tonight?" I asked, and they happily said they were doing all right. Then I zoned in on the little miscreant. "And you, little buddy, you enjoying your stay?"
Yeah?
Good. You enjoying your little game you've been having here? This is when the mood of the table turned as everyone stared at us. We've had reports all night about people running around, and I just had a guest complain about someone knocking on their door, and another telling me he saw it.
That was someone else, not...
I got you on camera.
But I'm not the one running around.
I don't care, I caught you on camera doing it. Then, before we could continue, his dad interjects to stop his son from lying and apologize, and I got to tell everyone there that, although we're happy to have them, after so many reports I would like them to refrain from letting their kids run around, and how I would hate to have to escalate this matter. Then I apologized for interrupting their fun and wished them all a good night. It seems that took the wind out of their sails, and they went off to bed. But I did get to see that little moment you see in public with all dads and their unruly kid, where the dad is leaning down to eye level with their kid and giving them the quiet but determined, "Knock it the fuck off." And thus, there was one group of inebriated hockey parents left in my lobby. I'll be honest, that was a bit of a rush, but I absolutely had the shakes right after. I'm not used to confrontation and arguing with people. I kind of crave it now, just so I can beat this stupid shiver I get. And I have no idea how I would have dealt with a combative parent. But this night doesn't end there. Our little jumpers in the upper floors are back, but now another guest is complaining about them roughhousing next door. I asked to confirm what side of their room they were hearing that from, but it's easier to figure out when one side is a room with kids and the other side is an elevator. I give them another call, tell them to stop. They say it isn't them. Our remaining congregation of parents did ask to see who it was, I just had to call. I just said the floor, and half of them were relieved, and one dad was pissed and ashamed. Then it turns out one of these kids has some moxie. He video calls his dad in the lobby and starts talking about me, saying he's going to give me a call and straighten this all out. This kid either has some cojones on him or is a prime example of why you wear a helmet in contact sports. His dad's reply was simple and straight to the point. "Shut the fuck up. Shut up. Go shower and go to bed. Do not call." Then the dad goes on to tell me that he wants to charge something to his unruly room, and I pulled him aside to tell him that room was the one being complained about, and that there was no way the people complaining could have the wrong room. So those kids were 100% caught dead to rights. And with that, I was 2 for 2 in conquering these little devils and felt like a giant. But like my namesake, my hubris, my pride laid me low. The hotel knew I was getting cocky and sought to humble me the moment I tried to type this up. I had a guest called on about water leaking through his bathroom light, and I had no idea how to fix it, and nowhere to move him due to a full house, so all I could do was put a trash can on his toilet with a towel in it to muffle the noise. And on top of that, I got told I might have to help my brother out on my 3-day weekend starting after this shift, because he pinched a damn nerve. Truly the hotel giveth, and the hotel taketh away. 2. I work for 2 franchises of a popular hotel brand. They're 2 of 3 sister properties very close to each other. I came in for my audit shift tonight and saw someone sitting in our business center. No biggie, except when I recognized them as someone who I saw last week hanging out in the breakfast area of the other hotel I work at for my entire shift without a reservation. I didn't realize it until, the tail end of my shift, which is why I didn't do anything then. This person works at the 3rd sister property in our little trifecta of franchises. It took me about 3 hours to muster the courage, I'm incredibly conflict-averse, to ask them if they had a reservation tonight, to which they replied, "Yeah, I'm in the middle of making it right now." Keep in mind they've been sitting in our lobby since at least 3 p.m., confirmed by the girl who worked before me. I tell them that's fine, but if they don't make it, they'll have to leave since they're not a paying guest. Immediately, they're asking me why I'm being hostile. Annoyed, yes. Hostile, no. I let them know I'm not trying to be hostile, just letting them know company policy. They have the balls to say, "I work for another hotel, I know company policy." Clearly you don't know it, but okay, babe. To no one's surprise, they do not make a reservation, but come back up to the desk and ask for my name. I have a name tag on, so no qualms there. But then they ask for my last name. There's no way in hell I'm giving my whole-ass government name to someone who has made this interaction a lot more antagonistic than it had to be. As they're leaving, they turn back to me and say, "You really should be careful how you speak to people because you never know who you're talking to." Huh? Anyways, they leave and I call the property they work at to ask if anyone's mentioned this happening in the past. The other auditor said they were a newer hire and that she was shocked they'd come at me like that. She said she'd pass it on to their GM, and I'll be doing the same. The real kicker is they made a res at the other hotel I work at, so let's hope I don't see them tomorrow. 2. So I just got off the night audit shift and had such a frustrating experience with an attempted walk-in. So I get a phone call at around 12:30 a.m. asking if we have a room for tonight and tomorrow night. We do. I confirm he's looking for 2 nights and he says, "No, only 1. So we're off to a great start already. He said he'll arrive in a couple of minutes and asked if he can just make the reservation when he arrives. I informed him it's our last room of the night and that in any case we need a credit card to hold the room. He immediately flips out at me, saying he's driving so he has no way to get a credit card number because he needs to look at the road and to just hold the room for him. I told him if he truly is only 2 minutes away it shouldn't be a problem, but I wouldn't be making a hold due to needing a credit card. And the fact that he isn't even clear about how many nights he needs. He hung up without acknowledging me and then arrives half an hour later. 2 minutes my ass. Right away he argues with me about the length of stay, as technically it's Sunday, since it's 1 a.m. now. However, the system still considers it Saturday evening, as we haven't rolled the day yet anyway. If he wanted to check in right away, I wouldn't be able to do so without a Sunday rezo, as check-in would be at 3 p.m. This would still be counted as Saturday night in his billing. That's just how it works. Essentially, if we did that, he would be receiving a free night because he was wanting to check out on Monday. So he finally just accepts it and throws his passport at me When I ask for a credit card, he just points to his phone and says I'll tap it. I inform him that unfortunately we don't accept tap, that he needs to provide a physical credit card and has to insert it into the machine and input a PIN. He becomes even more hostile and says that he lost his wallet and doesn't have a credit card with him. I tell him I can't move forward with his booking unless he has a physical card in his name to provide. He says he'll just give me cash. Then I inform him that due to hotel policy we don't accept cash, which we don't. He becomes irate at this point and argues with me to just make an exception for him. I apologize and repeat what I've already told him. He goes to his car and comes back in with a wallet, even though he's said his was lost and stolen. He gives me a credit card he claims to be his wife's. I repeat that the credit card needs to be in his name, or that his wife needs to be physically present with her ID in order for me to run the card. He begins arguing with me again, and once again demands to just use cash. I politely tell him that any hotel in the surrounding area will tell him exactly what I have told him, so I am not purposely being difficult. It's just standard hotel policy for liability reasons, and unfortunately I will not be able to book him in. He leaves again, and then we get a phone call from his wife, which my manager ended up picking up. She explains he's been unrightfully kicked out of his Airbnb, not pleading a great case here, and that we just need to accept whatever credit card he has, or take cash for him to stay. My manager repeats everything I have said, and she argues with him some more. Finally, he drives off, and we don't hear from either of them again, thank God. Notes: we are a Forbes 4-star property going for Forbes 5 stars. 5 stars on a regular scale. I'm pretty sure it's common practice to not take cash walk-ins, especially late on a weekend night, for higher-end properties, but correct me if I'm wrong. 4. Coming in for an audit shift, the phone rings and a caller asks about a rate that has to be specifically booked online. I am relatively new to hospitality, and I was not really sure what the issue was. Since he wasn't in our system, I hand the phone off to my coworker and she informs him that he has to book it online. She asks him if there's anything else she can do. He says no thanks. So she says goodbye and hangs up. He calls back about 2 minutes later and starts yelling at her for hanging up on him, screaming loud enough that I could hear him from across the desk without a speakerphone. My coworker apologizes as she thought he was done. He begins to yell again, so she essentially just says, "Sorry about that, sir. I don't think I can help you," and hangs up. He then calls approximately 11 times, and both of us decide not to pick up. My coworker advises me to lock the doors in case he decides to come in. Being new to the job and not thinking anyone would do that, I lock them and don't think much of it. The caller does show up with his brother, and I ask him to show his key card through our intercom system. He says that he talked with me earlier on the phone, and says that he wants the name of me and my coworker, our manager's phone number, and that he wanted to book a room for the night, but didn't need the discounted rate. He also informed me that he didn't have an issue with me because I wasn't rude to him. I say that unfortunately, due to yelling at my coworker and spam calling the hotel 11 times, I will not be renting him a room tonight. I also say that the incident has been recorded and he is free to call back during business hours tomorrow if he'd like to speak to a manager. This is not good enough for him, and continues to demand my name, my coworker's name, and my boss's phone number. He also complains about just wanting somewhere to stay for his dad's funeral. I relent and give him the names and number of our manager's office line, figuring that we gave him our names anyway while he was calling, and that he could find the number of our manager online if he really wanted it. I mostly wanted him to leave without making my night more complicated. He eventually does. Caller's brother comes in, walking through the locked doors as a guest with an actual card also walks in, asking to rent a room. I ask him if he is with the caller. He says yes, but that the caller will not be a problem. I inform him that I will not be renting a room for them, as his brother has been consistently aggressive with me and my coworker, and that there are plenty of hotels nearby that I can give him directions to. He attempts to guilt-trip me about the funeral, but ultimately is mostly cordial as I tell him the rates at nearby hotels. He leaves. Caller returns to the door, visibly incensed and this time bordering on literally yelling at me. He informs me that he is recording me. Oh my heavens, no. And that he was not threatening me or my coworker, and that I am a liar. I patiently inform him that he was being aggressive, and that I didn't use the word threatening. He starts to go on a tirade about my lack of morals, ethics, and compassion due to his father's recent passing. He then proceeds to say how he can't believe me as a gay person would treat someone so poorly. For reference, I am not wearing anything identifying about my sexual orientation. I don't even have any common signifiers of being gay, like earrings, which I do sometimes wear. At this point, I am both annoyed and impressed that he was able to clock my sexual orientation, thinking that I could make much better use of such a finely honed gaydar than he could. I say into the intercom, "Sir, I am not going to be dealing with this anymore. You can either leave or I will be calling the police." His response is classy, as he was for the entire conversation, was to yell, "Fuck you," and then a homosexual slur. He made sure to turn around and leave pretty quickly, as one of my other guests, a pretty scary-looking dude who was there with his family, was getting up to walk to the door to see what the commotion was about, and looked pretty pissed. Despite looking pretty scary, the guy was a total sweetheart, and as much as I discouraged him from trying to deal with the issue, I very much appreciated being willing to potentially throw hands to keep me safe. He has not returned, thankfully. He also has not tried calling my manager, which is disappointing, because I'd love to hear how she'd deal with this guy. He also hasn't tried posting the video, which I would be entertained to see, given how the whole thing went down. Fairly standard audit shift, I suppose. 5. I currently got a guest service agent position at a 5-star property in Australia as casual staff. I have previous experience at a 3-star hotel for about 6 months, also as a GSA. Let's just say I'm not confident in my abilities at managing front office duties. I can definitely greet and check in and out guests in a friendly manner, collecting payments, providing them general information, and handling common requests for their stay, etc. But for things like handling guest complaints for room issues, noises, or special requests, colored printing, mailing items to guest addresses, I'm quite unsure of how to do it, so I always have to check with my manager, colleague, or PABX person. There is also the goddamn loyalty program that also has so many stupid things to learn between different tiers, benefits, and reward program. My training manual provided by one of my DMs is severely lacking, although he keeps telling me everything I need is inside the booklet. Then, of course, some guests come in telling me they have an appointment with a certain important person working at other departments, that I have no ideas who or where they work. My weakest experience is definitely handling room inventory, whether it is to move, upgrades, upsell. I understand the differences in the room, whether it is double, king, queen beds, and the view, but I always have troubles with handling a request for a higher floor. Since a lot of the time, if I'm not careful, I could seriously cause the whole future room allocation schedule to be messed up. I always pass that to my more experienced colleague and my duty manager, but I never feel confident enough to do it myself. That's why I have a problem with doing room upsell and room moving. It sounds so risky and complicated. I still don't understand why some rooms are put out of order and marked as rolled on the opera system by my hotel. I'm also unfamiliar with some other department work in the hotel, like how the concierge handle car parking, how event and conference sales are handled, special dining offers at the hotel restaurants, and a plethora of countless things. The thing is, I'm getting less hours, only 3 shifts per week, and it always feels like so much to learn even till now. I'm wondering if I currently am doing well enough to work at this 5-star property. My colleagues seem so confident in both their knowledge, manner, and they even know a lot of the faces of a lot of crucial employees that I don't even know of. And lastly, the worst part of me is that I'm never filled in the loop with all what's going on at the hotel. My colleagues from both front office and other departments, F&B, PABX, events, concierge, housekeeping, engineering, seem to always discuss with my DM about all sorts of plans and issues that I am absolutely unaware of, and I was never filled in, although my other front office colleague is filled in. I was wondering if this is a sign that I'm not seen as reliable or competent enough, or is it just imposter syndrome? I did make one fuck-up last week, as a diamond guest was mad at me for not getting him a complimentary upgrade. He spoke with my DM and GM, and I honestly feel really embarrassed, as I was reprimanded by the DM later on, while the GM gives an unapproving look. I feel like I'm only good at doing basic and surface-level GSA duties, but not enough for more deep responsibilities. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to Coahw, episode 138. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. Before you go, please hit the like button. If you'd like early access to these videos, then follow me on my Patreon page, which is linked in the description. You can support me there for as little as $1 or more if you'd like per month. You'll also find a link in the description to the Hellfreezer merchandise store. And if you especially enjoyed today's video, then why not leave a tip? You can do that by clicking on the little heart with a $sign in the middle, underneath the video. But you don't have to. You never have to, but I do appreciate it. Okay. No other business today, as far as I'm aware. Nope, I think I've taken care of everything that needs to be done. So let's move right along to Hellfreezer's question of the day. And today's question is: mac and cheese, do you like it baked or stovetop? Keep that simple this week. And before we go on, we'll have the answer of the day from a previous video. And I'm just realizing now, I apparently asked the same question in 2 videos last week. I think it was last week, is basically the music that makes you think of your teen years. I might have phrased it differently, I'm not even sure. But this was from Coahw 136. I think the other one was from a revenge video. And today's answer comes from Brian Akuba. And their answer is definitely Thriller by Michael Jackson. I was 16 at the time. I love that song so much. I like the video, but I think I like the song more than the video, which is very, very catchy. And not a lot of songs have Vincent Price in them, what can I say? Okay, and with that, I'm going to head off for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.